so excited that you are joining us today on a Wednesday. Today we will be talking about time-saving smart cities. We have 3 great speakers that will be joining us today. If you have any questions during the webinar, go ahead and add them to your question box on your screen, and we will get to them after we go through the slides and we talk. We are recording this session, so if you have to leave or you come in late or you miss any part, we will be sending out the recording, and then a couple takeaways that we feel are super important that from this webinar that we want you to remember. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Giandri. He is one of my coworkers here at Stefanini, and he will get started and start off with introductions. Take it away, Giandri.
Thank you, Amy. Actually, thank you everybody that were able to join us for this webinar regarding the smart city and how the smart city is a valuable proposition to save time and improve the life quality of the city. And I have here 2 partners, great speakers, Wangda and Jason. They will introduce themselves. And I'm Giandri Machado, responsible for digital transformation and innovation within Stefanini. So let me guide you here. Wangda, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Wangda Zuo. I'm associate professor in the architecture engineering program at the University of Colorado Boulder. My research is mainly on the modeling and simulation of smart cities.
And Jason.
Hey everybody, I'm Jason Nelson. I'm Executive Director for the Smart Cities Council. It's my job to work with both our private sector partners and our public sector colleagues that are building smart city projects in their communities. And the council itself, we're an organization that helps communities develop their projects and bring them through that pre-procurement planning process to get them to fruition more quickly.
Thanks, Wangda and Jason. Yeah, so the theme that we selected for today is regarding the smart city is more than the full approach that we have about technologies and how those technologies are deployed, employed, and distributed within the city, and also collecting data and bringing to a situational room. No, we are now focused more in trying to understand how to measure the quality of a smart city implementation. Of course, we need to go sometimes through the technologies, everything, and but there is one main point. There is extremely well-defined main point about a smart city implementation, and the concept that smart city is about people is the life quality. It's the way that how the smart city nowadays and from now on should treat the citizenship, should treat all the domains within the city, like safety, like transportation, and all involvement within the transportation, like mobility, parking, traffic lights and congestions, or environment, everything, health, public health. So all those domains, we call those domains within the city, they need to be treated by a smart city project focusing to bring back to the citizen time, quality time. So the citizen should not spend more time in traffic jams. The citizen should not spend time discussing bills, discussing problems with the utility companies, worried with the safety, and all those issues typical from a big urban area or a medium urban area. And then it's never too much to bring these numbers for the audience of a smart city approach. So we are growing and growing and growing our urban areas all over the world. That's a non-stop process, even with the whole conditions that are offered around the urban area and the revitalization of downtowns of the world. We all are looking for better employment, better resources and the urban area is still attracting billions of people. Okay, so and yes, it's about time. It's about life quality. Uh, we nowadays spend around 101 hours in traffic and park finding. To search a nice park is a big problem. Not only when we have an anchor event or every day in the rush hour. So the traffic parking together holds us to be productive and to improve our life quality. We have also a large number of hours of our life discussing with customer services, with public works utility companies, around 6 hours with public services in lines and emitting documents and everything. When some studies try to associate with this with the cost, there is also a number, more than 100 billion annually. You know, I would ask my partner here, Jason. Jason has been several smart city implementation, how he can illustrate his experience with those cases and those numbers that we have here in the US and the main cities that he has been working with.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are a lot of different metrics for evaluating city performance, right? In Dubai, they use happiness index. In, other communities, they're looking at sustainability. Particularly on the west coast of the U.S., there's a lot of communities there that are looking at their own sustainability as a key metric for the success of their smart growth and future. In others, it's economic development, and and certainly, the time spent in traffic is a big one. But as we look ahead at the next few months and years, I think what we've seen is cities are looking at a shift in traffic patterns, and they're not sure what the future is going to bring, right? Without having that sort of data, without being able to understand and model, are residents coming back to downtown urban core? Is there going to be an increased flow of traffic, in and around the close-in suburbs, out to the exurbs? Like, they don't know, right? And so there's a lot of need for this information, and cities are really looking at ways that they can gather this data.
Yeah, so, but in the opposite side, if the smart cities bring to the citizen technologies, conditions, and environment where the traffic, and that's what we have from Wangda in the next slide, the next approach, is about, hey, can we make zero the time spent on traffic jam? Can we evolve for a wonderful environment where we do not spend time anymore with any problem, with any issue? It's not possible to bring excellent, it's not possible to bring a perfect environment, but there is an excellence condition that the smart city implementations can bring to the city. And this is also about, hey, so if I'm not spending time there, I have this time available for me daily. We have cities where it holds every day half an hour. Going back in the commute 1 hour, several professionals in the highways, in the traffic jam. So you put this in the spread in a year, we are talking about 100 hours of several professionals in different levels, which is impacting their specific life quality. And that the other hand, we see billions of dollars is held on traffic, because we pay those professionals. We need. So how to have those guys happier and producing more? So the numbers are around from 5 to 300 hours delivered back to the citizen if they have a smart city condition delivers them the excellence of their services, like traffic lights, like traffic conditions management, when the system can foresee situations in a Thanksgiving, in a 4th of July, in an NFL game, or in a disaster response, any conditions that take the tranquility, take the standard of the mobility, if well studied and if well treated, will provide a faster response to every single citizen at that phenomenon, at that moment. So the next 4th of July, I'm not going to spend too much time in the traffic jam. The 2 days before Thanksgiving also. And also, can we think about disaster response, how it's really hard to manage? The smart city brings these visual conditions where the managers, the authorities, they can apply decision-making process, including the human and artificial intelligence, and say, let's do this. That will save lives and save time and bring a better condition at that environment to the city. Jason has a deep study about that, where there is aggressive thinking about how to make the zero congestion, zero outage, and the zero traffic. Jason, your hand.
Yeah, I think.
Oh God, sorry. You can.
Wangda. Yeah.
So yeah, I think Giandri, this is you made a very good point. So basically, in one of our ongoing national science research project, we are trying to understand how we are going to address the issues you mentioned through the innovation in terms of scientific research. So as we can see from this graph, we are envisioning the future smart connect community will be, all the transportation will be provided by unmanned electrical vehicle. So that means, all the cars can drive automatically, and then they can receive signal from the traffic lights or other systems to allow them to find the best route to avoid the traffic, also to achieve the global optimal for the entire society instead of their own local optimal for the individual vehicle. So to enable that, we will need really a fast-speed communication network to let all the cars to be informed about the traffic condition and also to report their condition to the system so that we can do quick optimization. So that means the transportation will be tightly connected with communication. And also potentially we could deploy the drones to provide a mobile communication stations to location we need more bandwidth. Just think about our cell phone. If we come to big events with hundreds of thousands of people, then probably everyone gets slow internet connection. Then the internet company will provide the mobile station to speed up the speed of internet. So that is important for traffic speed. On the other side, we all talk about sustainability, as also as you mentioned in your early slide. So cities are really pushing very hard towards the sustainable city. So many cities are trying to achieve the called 100% renewable energy city. There are more than 100 cities signed this petition. So that means the future energy will be provided by renewable energy only, and we have to take advantage of our renewable energy generation, energy storage, and transmission, and also we have to carefully manage our demand because the renewable is not available at any time, right? So you have to plan carefully. And then our electrical vehicles, have bigger battery, so the charge or discharge can have active interaction with our future energy network. So how are we going to, manage the interaction between our transportation and the energy network can be another interesting issue. And also the charging the price of electricity most likely will be dynamic. So then as a user, when do you charge? How much time you want to charge to save your money can be another issue. That's also the time, right? So then communication system also needs energy to power them up. The goal of this research is trying to achieve what's called zero traffic for transportation, zero congestion for communication, and zero outage for the energy network. And so in my lab, we're developing the open source virtual testbed to mimic the future community. And so this testbed is already open source released. You can find in the testbed from our lab website. And also my collaborators at Virginia Tech, they're trying to study different optimization methods based on our testbed to see how can we optimize the planning of our future communities. So that will support the industry application to provide some guidance for the future industry application.
Thank you, Wanda. Wanda, let me ask one thing about this chart, which impacts a lot of in our, when we talk about excellence, and then we see here zero traffic, zero outage, and zero congestion. If we aim this, do you think we can transform cities like Chicago or Philadelphia, where people are spending more and more time in the traffic jam? That's a reality that we can expect in the near future, or this is a condition that needs to be treated and aimed as any kind of mission. When we aim at something and we get closer, but we know that the reality is a little bit different. I like the concept that zero traffic, zero outage, zero congestion is bringing a lot of time back to every single householder, every single professional even involved in this. So if we have those numbers, those missions accomplished, even the professionals, they are not working extra hours. They are back home. The dispatch is saved, the taxes are saved because all the bills are lower. So is this a reality? This is a dream that we can expect?
I would say right now, this is a dream, but we have the hope to achieve the dream. I can point out, for example, at the energy, so probably the pace to achieve the dream will be different depending on different systems. For example, transportation. So a lot of cities is implementing different smart technology, and we have seen the automatic driving cars is on the road now, and more electric vehicles also on the road, right? So this is on the way. From the energy side, it's even advanced. For example, a lot of communities, they have achieved the net zero energy goal. So actually in this project, so we have been working with a net zero energy community in Florida on an island. So we, based on that real net zero energy community, we created another virtual testbed for the net zero energy community. That allows the people to find optimized design strategy or operational strategy to reduce the cost. And that community can be also used as a resilient community. Think about when hurricane comes, when you have power outage, your community can generate power for the people inside the community. So you can have air conditioning running while other people, they probably don't have power. So that, I would say, it is coming on the way. Maybe in the next 10 or 20 years, we could achieve this kind of dream in some of the cities.
No, that's perfectly, yes. So we are back here to a sequence that shows that Jason will show probably the engagement. Those cities, they have different problems because of different history that they face. And also not only regarding the history, sometimes the environment was a appealing point in certain milestone in the history. Another one was the lighting, another one's something about safety. Each city has its different history that brings a platform, a basement, and the citizen condition, expectation to be treated in a smart city program. What I like from the previous slide that we need to see that every single domain needs to be together to handle a smart city, focus on the traffic lights and cameras that nowadays they detect the agglomeration, abrupt movement from a person, abrupt movement from a car, and brings this as through artificial intelligence for a decision making. We know that we are producing a lot of data, and this data, independent of the moment that the city is, needs engagement. Jason, can you elaborate more about these next two slides when you compare conditions about how should be?
Yeah, I mean, so cities are in different places in their smart city journey, right? We talk a lot about a smart city journey. It's not a destination, right? It's a journey. You're ever getting smarter. To your point about hitting the bullseye or landing a little short of it, it's all on your journey to get there. What this graph represents is it shows the sort of siloed nature of many different smart city programs within communities. So you might have a community that's invested in smart meter devices for their electric usage, and another that has invested in body cameras and cruiser intelligent systems for their emergency responders. all of these are great solutions, right? But they're all very siloed and isolated. And so where we need to go if we're going to truly be a smart city is to be able to take the data that these end devices are generating and bring it together. So if you go to the next slide, I think that there's what we're trying to get to here is an architecture that looks like this, where this information is coming together so that into a centralized location where decisions can actually be made based on it. You know, to the earlier question of, you know, traffic flow and where is traffic coming and going in the new sort of city paradigm, are people returning back to downtown? Are they going out to you know, restaurants and bar areas? You know, are those tourist areas seeing the sort of foot traffic that they need? That's incredibly important data for city leaders trying to make decisions right now for 2021 budgeting. So being able to have that data and say, well, we're down 7% or we're down 50%, you've got a whole wealth of decisions that you can make based on, you know, getting confirmation there. So that's going to be just really critical that, you know, this data comes back into a centralized location, is allowed to be shared between the various silos, and frankly, even in between the various communities on a regional basis. So we've seen a number of communities start to be able to share some of this data, particularly as we get to some of those clean tech initiatives. So, yeah, that's what we're seeing.
Yes, Jason, we see here. So the main utility in the public works, electricity, electric, water, gas, transportation, and the emergency response, and everything regarding the networks. Those are distributing and being measured. You know, we have the whole electricity flowing through the city. We have the gas networking flow through the city, the pipelines for water and wastewater. Do you see that nowadays, at least in the main cities all over the U.S., are exchanging those data? They know what's going on when someone is going to dig in response or drill in response of emergency response. They know where the gas is. They know where the water is. So is there a plan to integrate that? What's your vision about this nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, I think cities have realized that over the last couple of months, especially, you know, when faced with some of these crises that they're seeing in their communities, whether that's COVID related or social justice related or client environmental related, you know, wildfires, earthquakes, flooding, storm response, etc. Cities need that data in order to be able to make really good decisions. When we have data that is isolated in silos, as so many of the smart city projects are, what we've seen is that a city they don't have enough, you know, budget to be able to implement an entire smart city solution. So they're not putting smart trash cans in the entire city. They're putting them in the downtown tourist urban core, or they're putting them in key residential areas that they want to study and do further advancement. Well, that means that data then is just in that small little section. And oftentimes that data is not being shared with other departments. So there's a real need to take that data, bring it across those departmental lines, bring it and make it a city-wide project, not just a pilot project. So we're hopeful that cities, now that they're starting to see the need for more data-driven decision-making, are going to start to bring those projects into the mainstream and use that data to help them bend the cost curves downward, create more efficient service delivery, and really be able to you know, make those better decisions that are going to lead to improved you know, quality of life for the residents.
Thank you, Jason. So we see how the utility network, and again, the utility network years ago, we would include even the cable for telecommunications, and the telecommunications are back in the cable nowadays because the internet, because the TV. So the telecommunication, the wireless, the 5G is a basement. It's a platform of solution to make all this data flow with the right speed and well distributed, and even being held in the edge and taking the appropriate select data for decision making. So all those things are very extremely important because we, with the smart city, probably we are trying to improve the water consumption against the water leaking and how we reconsider the water and reuse the water and how to waste this water. That goes through several of our networks within the city. Those networks, they were not built yesterday. They were built to some places 200, 300 years ago, like the water pipeline and the wastewater water also. So it's hard to handle. It's not impossible. And there are some cities doing a wonderful job where they know every single vertex of that pipeline, of that network. But is with the smart city project also encapsulating these networks in using IoTs, smart metering, and the situation room, trying to collect information, using artificial intelligence to forecast situation, to eliminate risking and mitigate risking of leakings and outages that help us to spend less time discussing our bills or even calling the service desk. With also,
well, I'll do you one better. I mean, to the point of your point about traffic and people sitting in traffic. I mean, the connectivity between the water department doing water main break repairs, planned maintenance even, is sometimes not coordinated with public safety and not coordinated with the Department of Transportation. So you can have significant backups that the water department says, hey, this was on the schedule for 6 months. You guys should know about this, but nobody ever told Department of Transportation, hey, you need to be expecting delays. We need to reroute traffic here, there, and everywhere. We can't do that at the same time as construction on this major artery over here, because then it's that communication, right? And bringing it all together. That's where, and if you know that you have leaks, you can get out in front of that. You can make sure that you're making, people wait in traffic a lot less. Absolutely. A huge issue.
Yeah, we were the fleet management, the dispatch. If you are back to the integration of this information, the collaborative work that the smart city brings to that. So it's about to put technology there, understand this technology, and share. So the water, the gas, and the electricity network are somehow well overlapping and understood by all forces used in a dispatch. Less dispatch, less people, less safety costs, less fuel, which impacts a lot of and less cars in the street. So the dispatch of this crew to the field is less because everything is better planned, and eliminate even the rework because I went there and I tried to work with my water pipeline. No, I cannot do this now because there is some gas conditions here that this company needs to come before. This whole thing, it's improved with the smart city and saving time, lives, and costs and billions of dollars to every player involved.
Yes, yeah, I think also you could use the smart sensor, for example, also the solid waste. So in some cities, they put a sensor on the trash can to detect and how full the trash can is. Then they deploy, the trucks to pick up trash. So, right now, many places they just use regular schedule that it potentially waste of the fuel because the trash can is almost empty. So that's another way to reduce traffic, to reduce the fuel consumption, also reduce the cost of the users for the trash service.
Yeah, that's one of the main amazing impacts because let's summarize this. For example, in everything that we learned from Jason and from Wangda, that we feel like we have less cars in the field. From ourselves, we are spending less time there. We are saving a lot of money in some different derivatives, different lanes of the results of the return on investment of a smart city implementation brings one key point: less car in the field. So the reduction about fuel, it's extremely impacting in all domains. Less dispatch, optimized dispatch, smarter dispatch, zero congestions, like Wangda mentioned. This whole thing brings a dashboard that it's impressive about how we bring back the time to the city in different ways. Okay, so there are several factors that the smart cities attack the city issues and bring as a return on investment and benefits. And Jason, in your experience, is the fuel and the traffic the main factor, or this is one of the main one that attract our attention, but there are some others. Like I will only illustrate and continue the question to you. Last 2 weeks ago, I was in a meeting about smart city, and then I brought it to this slide here. The legal process are getting faster and cheaper because we have more information stored and available for the legal groups. So from this example that I mentioned, the legal process in the Smarty and treating situations from the customer and the citizens to this huge volume of fuel consumption reduction. What's your experience within the project you see in the US?
So I think, with in many communities right now, cash is going to be king, right? Budgets are going to be driving a lot of the discussion. So being able to bend cost curves downward is going to be a critical part of the process. That's one conversation we've had over and over again with a lot of our private sector partners is how do they position themselves as someone that can help communities do just that? And that is, I think, a really critical opportunity. Because in the past, communities may have been reticent to make changes because, well, hey, look, inertia is what happens. It's the way we've always done things. In the future, though, we've got to be able to bend that curve downward, right? We've got to come through and find ways of creating those efficiencies. And so this is a real fundamental opportunity for technology to come in and really save the day. So, in many communities, that's the driving factor, but it's not ever the sole factor, right? There's also, sustainability. In some communities, you're seeing wildfires, you're seeing flooding in others, you're seeing, storm damage from Maria and Irma and all the, Superstorm Sandy and others that are still not replaced. So those are key issues. So resiliency is a huge issue. Sometimes it's engaging the underserved communities that are tired of being left behind. You've got some, where the big news of the day are students that are going back to remote learning and don't have enough connectivity in the home. So, making sure that these other communities are engaged and feeling a part of the city and the community is a really important part in some cities. So there's a lot of different motivations. In others, it's economic development, right? You may have had some communities that were very much hit by COVID and are trying now to bounce back and rebound and get tourists back. So there's a lot of different motivations that are out there. But I think, to the extent that smart city solutions can be brought in to solve those problems, connect those communities, build those business cases for rebuilding better, that's where there's real power within the smart city space.
Amazing. Wanda?
Yeah, I want to reiterate with Jason's point. So smart city is really great to improve the efficiency of our city operation. And so we do need to consider resiliency because of global warming, climate change, and also other different disasters. So basically, I would say we should consider how we can make the city smart and resilient, using technology. So that I think that will be the future direction for the smart city development.
Yes, I was exactly about to ask this. In the chart that you brought to us, we see the communication one key point. And then I saw that's not the communication as a technology where everything flows. I understood even that the communication about what's being done, the communication, the availability of this information in our smartphones, in the portals of all those players involved, the utility companies, the administration of the local governments, are part of this zero dream, zero thing. Is that right? Is this the right interpretation? Wanda?
Yes. Okay. So I would say it to really achieve the zero. I would say one, we need to have kind of centralized processing capability. But if we think about resiliency, we probably need to put some of our computing to the edge, so really to the locals, so that we can have more distributed system. That in case of our central networks down, our individual community or cities still be able to operate. So just I think again, think about the hurricane. So what happened recently in Louisiana? Again, the entire power grid is down. If we really we can only rely on the centralized system, that's not resilient at all. So we need to have our local processor center, our community be able to operate in island mode if that needs to be.
Yeah, that's amazing. The city, it's a target. It's a main goal of a smart city, but there is a process to reach there, where the city is also an important player. So the sharing of this information, back to the Jesus point, where all those data layers needs to be shared in order to produce a well-defined, informed decision by the main authorities and managers of the city. The citizen is also an important player, but when the citizen recognizes that everything is better, safer, revitalized in areas that were previously not under conditions to take the family, and he's back earlier to home, he spent less time on the telephone and the new chatbot and the new channels with those authorities and those services. The citizen also produce a behavior that is improved in response to this benefit. It's extremely clear in different implementations of the smart city that I've been. Also, the sharing of information and the distribution of this information through the different modern devices, the different modern channels, helps the citizen take a decision that for the next NFL game, he or she will park 15 minutes, 20 minutes away from downtown. There is a lighting control that helps him to be, when he's back, in a safe conditions, and I will take the family, the lights are on, the sidewalks have the kiosks informing. He knows that he can take a scooter, for a while, take a light rail. This whole internal mobility is better nowadays with the electrical vehicles. The car was parked away, and the trip to an NFL game, which takes millions, or in a congress, which attracts millions from all over the world, and the hub, which is the airport, brings those are connected with these informations, with the ground transportations, so it helps to improve. So the citizen, and the citizen is the visitor. The citizen is not only the resident, the citizen is the visitor or the tourist or the worker that works 100 miles from that. So also contributes with the wonderful and better behavior within the smart city implementations. I would summarize here with the help with my colleagues that there is efficiency improvement, which brings life quality and brings quality. And the life quality, they think about the householder, the resident. No, the worker of the utility company, the authorities, the workers with the public services, they also are impacted in this, not who they are serving at that moment, but everybody. So, and that's impressive. Those numbers are impressive, though in overall, we see from 25 to 40% of efficiency improvement, faster response, faster emergency response, customer response, preventive maintenance, all different things. And the cost reduction, we hope that impacts in the tax reduction, in overall also reduction, fuel, legal, safety, personnel. That's a summary what we three have been discussed here. I bring here Jason back with his experience about this COVID impact and how we can engage everything that we've been learning, and we try to transmit here in a COVID environment. Jason, what's new about that? What's your vision about that?
Sorry, I was on mute, so you guys didn't get to hear my dogs barking. Apologies. No, so so it's definitely, I think, a new paradigm for working with communities and working within communities making decisions. COVID was very much a different emergency. To Wangda's point earlier, it's definitely a different animal, because cities need different things in order to be resilient. It didn't often, harm the infrastructure. It instead harmed a lot of the sort of soft underbelly of the communities. And so, there are real human needs that are a part of this process. And so, the typical protocols that we had for handling emergencies oftentimes didn't apply. As communities are looking to rebuild, they are looking at those data analytics, as I mentioned. They're trying to figure out how do they, how short are they going to be in terms of budget next year? What communities need help, both people and also neighborhoods, right? Are there certain bar and nightclub and restaurant communities that are going to be incredibly hard hit over the next couple of months? And how do we help them bounce back? How do we help that economic development grow? Are we going to have, empty storefronts throughout downtown? When are the offices going to be able to reopen? And it's oftentimes not something that is subject to a hard deadline. It's changing. It's constantly changing, depending on infection rates, depending on attitudes of depending on the science that is released and transmissibility of the virus. People are scared, and they're not sure how they can come back safely and efficiently. And so cities that are trying to operate and deliver services and respond to these new needs are really blazing a new trail. And the cities that are best prepared are the ones that have the data at their fingertips, that have created the decision-making frameworks quickly to be able to respond to these crises. We're looking ahead at going into the winter and season here, and typical cold and flu season, and cities are trying to figure out what's going to happen. Are we going to be able to continue reopening, or are we going to be quickly backsliding? And if we do we have the data to be able to make those decisions? And so that's where, a lot of communities are pulling this data together, starting to figure out the right ways to go about it. And I know that Wangda has done a lot of work in, working with smart buildings and making buildings safer to reopen, so that there are a lot of moving parts in this process. But for local government, this is where they're concerned.
And Wanda, do you see in the full equation about this excellence, that architecture that you brought to us, what are the main factors that are impacting from COVID context, impacting that equation, in that paradigm, in that architecture that brings the excellence for transportation, for communications, and for utility?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, the COVID-19 is also a great challenge for the buildings engineer, so we call heating, ventilation, and air conditioning engineers. So how to provide the safe indoor environment for the people, especially for university. How we can safely let students back to the classroom is a big challenge. So it involves because the conventional system was not designed for this kind of emergency case. So so we're trying to find all different ways to change the control strategy of our buildings, ventilation system, to provide the safe environment for the occupants. Some of my colleagues at CU Boulder campus, they're trying to test the wastewater from student dorm to pre-identify if any outbreak is going to happen in a student dorm. So because it's not feasible to test everyone every day, right? So then, but you can test the wastewater from the dorm then to see if anything wrong. On the other spectrum, so we have another project with the defense side. So we're working on it's really to study the contaminant transportation across the city, and then how this get into the building. But so that project was initially designed for the terrorist attack, but now these contaminants, COVID-19 is also connected to the similar topics. So we hopefully we can use some knowledge we learned from that project also apply for the pandemic scenario.
Amy, we are reaching the time here limit. My final considerations is that I see a wonderful vision within the main smart city councils, not now only about the Jason's organization. What I mean is all the smart city councils all over the world, and essentially here in the US, the 50 states, the main 70 programs that we have here, where the capital is not the biggest city, not the biggest city. So I see that there is a kind of unification going on, at least expected in the standards of those technologies and the approaches used for the smart city implementation. What I see is, I feel like everybody's starting recognizing that there is a requirement to share information, to share history, share standards. We know that to manage a smart city in Las Vegas, where there is no need to turn off the lights, and in the other cities where the lights should be turned off to save. So this wholly different approach from different cities cannot be shared at all. So we can take the camera that is in one city to take to another one, but not the artificial intelligence and all that, not the learning model. So what I see is there is a moment that I feel like different organizations trying to bring together a concept about how the smart city should work and share information within the main departments, main organizations, and different geographies also. And this probably will accelerate the main goal, is to bring this time quality, this life quality to the city, save their time in traffic jam and solving problems. I would like also to get the final approach, the final considerations from Jason and Wangda, and back to you after that, Amy. Jason?
Sure. So, I think we've covered it well. I'd love just to make mention of our Smart Cities Readiness Challenge that we're hosting right now. We've got an opportunity for communities to come in and tell us about the projects they're working on in their community and get information about other projects in other communities. So, looking forward to working with more.
Yes, and then Wangda, your
consideration. So I'm very glad to talk about the smart city with all of you and to share some of the research advance from academic point of view. So we are going to actually offer a free workshop to teach people how to use our open source virtual testbed for the Smart Connect community on next Friday. So this is coexisting with the American Modetica Conference. You can Google and find the workshop information and register. So we're looking forward to seeing you in the workshop if you're interested in the modeling part.
This is great. And Amy, to you, questions on your hands, back to your hand.
Great. Thank you so much for the conversation. We did have one question come in, and so I'm just going to kind of read it verbatim of what it says. This listener wrote, most of the research focus on creating new smart cities and applying new technologies to them. Is this the right time to direct our research towards upgrading the existing cities into smart cities on larger scale?
Jason, I would let you start if you understood correctly.
Can you read that one more time?
Yeah.
I'm trying to.
Yeah. Sorry, it's sometimes harder just to like read it, but most of the researches focus on creating new smart cities and applying new technologies to them. Is this the right time to direct our research towards upgrading the existing cities into smart cities on large scale?
So the reason I wanted you to read it again is because there's a couple of thoughts. One, there's sort of the brownfields versus greenfields smart cities, right? We've seen some smart city developments that are focused on developing, oftentimes cities in the desert and helping, grow a brand new smart city. That's typically not the work that we do a whole lot of here at the council. We work with a lot of existing communities that are coming from various starting points on their journey. Sometimes all the way at the beginning, other very far ahead. Where though I think the question is going is really around how do communities get from those pilot projects that so many smart city initiatives are a part of, to those larger scale, full citywide deployments. I think that's where there's a tremendous opportunity right now, and I would love to see more research. I'd love to see more work being done. Communities I know around the world are trying to get there. I wouldn't say that there's a whole lot of great successful examples of that, and it's due to a lot of the things that we've mentioned here today, right? The siloization of budgets and procurement within communities, siloization of decision making, difficulty with planning in that sort of environment, and then just the long time scales that it takes to do these sorts of larger processes. So I think that there's a lot of work that remains to be done. I'd love to see more research on that. We had 36 communities submit 200 different smart city projects last year to our Readiness Challenge. We're looking forward to getting more this year, and we've identified a lot of trends there, but there's always more work to be done. So yeah, looking forward to more.
We take the same question now, Wanda. Wanda, there is a point of the questions that talk about most modern technologies. And then I face a situation that we discussed with the Smart City program and group, and we recognize that we don't need the most modern solution, the technology in that portion of the smart city. What I mean is, sometimes we feel like to put the most modern camera and the VMS, video management system, and then pattern recognition. It brings a lot of information, but we don't need all that information. What we need at that point is only a IoT or a sensor about the number of people going through. Do you understand? So do you think, it would be great to hear from you this concept about, do we need the best, most modern technology everywhere, or we can understand that there is a cost saving because we have an abundance of technology available in the market nowadays to deploy the smart cities?
Yeah, I can see that. I fully agree with what Jason just mentioned, that so I think that different cities have different needs, also with their different budget constraints. So I would say smart city, there's no single solution. We have to really provide different solutions customized for the needs of our customers. So even like if you think about research, like what I do, so we do something very theoretical research, but we also have very practical projects for industry. So for example, they just want to use the old equipment, but with smarter controller that can reduce energy consumption for 30–40%. So we just complete another project for the U.S. Department of Energy just to revise the control, and then the data center can save huge amount of energy. But then the return on investment is really good for them. So that things you can easily apply for larger scale. So then for the net zero energy community I mentioned in Florida, right? So it's existing community. So then we try to help with them. Can we develop some optimal algorithms so that they can decide when they use energy or when they discharge back to the power grid, so that they can reduce the peak power demand? That just direct dollar saving for the community owner. So that's something I feel it's really very attractive to the cities or communities, because they can see the direct cost saving for them, and also the investment is relatively small.
I see that. Amy, back to you. Actually, I would like to thank Jason and Wanda to join this, accept my invitation. I would like to thank everybody that joined the webinar. I indeed appreciate your presence here. Now back to you, Amy.
Okay. That pretty much wraps it up. So thank you again for tuning in today. Thank you to our three panelists for talking to us through smart cities. As I mentioned at the start of the webinar, we did record this session. So we will be sending out the recording, the PowerPoint, and just some main takeaways that also included the Q&A at the end. So again, thank you for joining, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.